Hi, I'm Willie. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. And what we're going to look at in this video is the new UDR7. And I also have the original UDR. I also have an original UDR back there. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at these, and then I'm going to show you how to quickly upgrade from your original UDR to your UDR7. So the UDR is the Unified Dream Router. And this came out right after the Unified Dream Machine. You'll recognize the format. This nice cylinder looking device that's able to run protect, talk, access, right? So it has to run the network application, and then it can run two additional applications like protect or access or talk. But you've had yours for a while and it's been a great device for you. And you're thinking, well, maybe I want to upgrade, right? So let's take a look at the original UDR. This one, we'll take a look at the hardware. And then we'll take a look at the hardware on this. And then I'll show you how to upgrade. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty quick. You just have to have some patience. And you should always have your, and this is my opinion, you should always have your Unify OS consoles. So your Unify OS cloud consoles that run Unify OS, you should always have those bound to unify.ui.com, because then that enforces multi-factor authentication on administrators and users if you set them up with special roles. You saw a video where I invited users to protect without using identity. And we want to enforce MFA on those users. So let's make sure we're binding our devices to UI, unify.ui.com. So let's take a look at the hardware spec. So over here is the original UDR. You can see it's sold out. It was coming in at $199 USD when it was in. I don't know if these are going to come back in stock or not, but I just wanted to look at the tech specs here. So it would run, like I said, connect, talk, access, protect, has to run network. And if you come back up here, it tells you the Unify network application support consists, the Unify application support consists of Unify network plus 2 of protect, access, talk, or connect. And they did acknowledge that even though it was a gigabit WAN port, that it would max out around 700 megabits. They said it right here on the spec page. So we scroll down, we can see that we could manage 20 unified devices, switches, access points, those types of things. You could do 5 HD cameras, 2 2K cameras, and 1 4K camera. You could have about 150 simultaneous users connected. That was between Wi-Fi and wired. That's what they recommended. The WAN port by default is a 1 gigabit connection. And then the LAN ports, there's 4 of them, and 2 of those are PoE. So I have to keep looking at the logo on the top of this to make sure that I'm grabbing the right device. But if we look at the back, if you remember on your UDR, up here at the top, right here, you've got a micro SD card, and then you've got your 4 ports, and these 2 are PoE. Your WAN was down here, and then you had the power connector. On the bottom is a reset, and if you hold that reset button too long, it factory defaults. And then on the front, we've got the little LCM display, and then this ring around the top, the LED ring, and then the logo there. So let's finish looking at the specs then on the original UDR. So they call this a compact desktop form factor. It does fit in if you've got a small home, a small office, and you don't need a rack and a ton of gear. You can tuck this thing by a TV. You could tuck it wherever your internet comes in, and it's aesthetically pleasing, and it does the job. They say that the coverage area is about 1,500 square feet. That is going to be dependent on the construction materials used. Obviously, in an open room, if you had a 1,500 square foot room, you're probably going to get that, but walls, doors, windows, floors, all those things will affect that. As you can see here, we do get all the IDS, IPS, zone-based firewall would run on the UDR. um, ad blocking. You can do the cyber secure subscription. So they're not saying that your UDR is no longer useful. They have just introduced a new version. It can do all the VPN things that we're used to, all of the routing. So everything that you're used to with your Unify OS consoles, except for the Express. The Express is kind of the one, the original Express. There is an Express 7, and I'm going to show you a video similar to this using the Express devices. Now, it does have 128 gig SSD built in for detection recording. So if you are using Protect and you have motion set up, it will capture those and store them internally. To expand that or to use Connect, like if you're doing digital signage screens, you do have to use the micro SD card. Max power consumption of the device without PoE was 19.37 watts, and there is a PoE budget of 40 watts on the two PoE ports. So each port, they're going to say is rated for 15.4 watts. Standard 110 AC for that. The processor in the UDR is a dual core processor at 1.35 gigahertz. The enclosure material is polycarbonate, and it does say that the original UDR weighs 2.5 pounds, 2.5 freedom units, or 1.2 kilograms. We've got that LCM display. Of course, we can do VLANs and guest isolation. Now, the Dream Router 7 is quite the upgrade. So here we can see that we have built-in tri radios, what they're calling it, but it's 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz using the Wi-Fi 7 standard. You've got your same LCM on the front. It's saying 1,750 square feet of coverage, 300 plus capacities, 300 plus client capacity. You've got three 2.5 gig ports on the back. You've got a 2.5 gig RJ45 WAN port, and you have a 10 gig SFP plus WAN port, and you have the micro SD expansion slot. It's got that same familiar footprint and that same aesthetic as the Unified Dream Machine and the original UDR. So you can run multiple apps on this as well. Here they're saying you can manage 30 Unified devices, the same amount of cameras, 300 plus users can be connected simultaneously. This will do 2.3 gigabits of IDS IPS throughput. You get all of the same security, all of the same VPN and SD-WAN, all of the same networking that you did with the UDR, but you get the Wi-Fi 7, you get the 2.5 gigabit wired ports, and you get a 10 gig SFP WAN port. So these are 2x2 radios in here, and you can do 4 SSIDs per radio. So in theory, you could have 12 different SSIDs for the one device. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend using private pre-shared keys or radius authentication, because the more SSIDs you're pushing out, the more resources you're chewing up. So you want to be just a little considerate of that. There is a pre-installed 64 gig micro SD for the NVR portion of this, and it does have that same micro SD card slot. You've got 15.4 watts of PoE, and let's see, we've got a quad core processor running at 1.5 gigahertz, 3 gigs of memory, and it comes in at 2.5 pounds. And the UDR7 does require Unified Network version 9.0.108 and later. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to make sure that I grab the correct device, and I'll give you a little little look-see at this. So you've got your LCM, you've got your ring, you've got the brand new Ubiquiti logo on the top. You've got that same reset and factory reset button on the bottom. So if you just press it once, you'll reboot the device. If you hold it longer, you're going to probably be not so happy because you're going to factory default the device. Ask me how I know. So on the back, you've got your single PoE port up there. The rest, it is 2.5 gig though, and these are all 2.5 gig ports. Here's your WAN port, and then here's your 10 gig SFP cage, SFP plus, and then down here is that micro SD expansion slot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hop over to my UDR that I have running, and I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily get your UDR7 up and running with the same configuration. So here's my UDR, and if we go into the settings, we're going to see I've got 3 Wi-Fi networks, and they are all on different networks here. You can see like my IoT, I've got it set at 2.4 gigahertz only. The guest is open. The other 2 networks are WPA2. Here are those VLANs, and I've got one here that's local that gets no internet. My internet is DHCP. You can see I've got VPN enabled here. Under security, you can see I'm doing region blocking. I've got a bunch of regions blocked. I'm doing IDS, IPS, and I'm doing everything that UDR will let me do. I'm not doing anything as far as policy-based routes or port forwarding. I do have a DNS record set up in there. I do have Wi-Fi speed limits set up for the guest network. And I think that's about all I've got going on. Now, I'm on the official 4.1.13 release, and for network application, I'm on 9.0.114. So, you got your new UDR7, and you can't wait to just swap it out. So let's say you've got a switch plugged into this. Let's say you've got a camera plugged into it or whatever, and you don't want to go through the configuration. You don't want to factory default this. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your UDR is bound to your unify.ui.com account. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come into control plane. Now by default, this is going to make an auto backup of this UDR to my account over at Ubiquiti. And this backs up everything, my Unify configuration, the UDR configuration for Unify OS, the whole kit and caboodle. So what I can do is, instead of waiting for that weekly backup, is I can just hit backup now. It's going to go ahead and back this system up and push this new backup directly to my Ubiquiti account. Now, one thing that I could do is I could download, I could restore, so I could do that here. But since you're going to want to bind the UDR7 to your Ubiquiti account, go ahead and push that back up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to physically unplug my UDR, and I'm going to plug my WAN in where the WAN goes on here. I'm going to plug my LAN into here where I've got my workstation plugged in, and we're going to walk through the setup, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to pull those settings over. So stand by. All right, so I've got everything physically swapped. You can see back here that the UDR7 is in the process of booting. It's got the ring there flashing. So when it's booted and it's ready for me to do the configuration, it's going to play that chime that we're all used to when your UDR or your UDM, your standard Dream Machine, or your UDR boots. It's got that nice chime at the end. So we're going to wait for that chime, and then we're going to be ready to hop into this and get it configured. So stand by. All right, so it kicked open, and this is what will happen to you. It will, once your computer gets a connection to the UDR, it's going to open the http://unify page, and you're going to see this Unified Dream Router booting screen. Now, a lot of times what it could be doing, don't get in a big hurry here. It could be pulling the new firmware. It could be auto updating. And you want it to do that. You want this to be on the latest software. You don't want to be on revision after revision. Now, I don't have the chime yet, which tells me that it's not ready to go. You'll notice, too, I'm going to close that, but you'll notice when I was on my UDR, I was signed in to unify.ui.com. That's going to be important that you know your username and password, and you should always bind the devices to that so that you have MFA. So this thing is going to keep booting, and the little LCM shows me that it's about 3/4 of the way done. I didn't get the chime on this one just yet. We might have to go through the setup, but check this out. So now it wants to know, what do we want to name this, right? So I'm going to say Willie-UDR7. Now, if you had that backup downloaded that was in the backup of the UDR, you could try to restore that here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go next. And here, what we're going to do is we are actually going to hit sign in down here for the UI.com account. And once we do that, it's going to see the backups that we've got, and then it's going to download that, and it's going to apply those settings. So we're going to hit sign in, and I'm going to go ahead and sign in real quick with my UI.com account. So hold please. All right, so my MFA for this is set up on email. I've got to go grab that code real quick. Actually, I might be able to grab it right here. As soon as my email decides to come up, there it is. Make sure that you can see this. We're on the right screens. We are recording. So I'm going to put in my MFA code. And now it is going to see all of the different backups that are on my UI account. And it's going to say, what do you want to do? Well, look at this. We just did this backup, and it was the original UDR. That's the only one that's bound to this account. And we can look at all of the backups, but we just pushed that backup. So we want to restore all applications and settings. That is from the UDR. So right now this thing's a blank slate, but once we select this and we hit next, it's going to download all of that information into the UDR7, and it's going to reprogram all of our VLANs, all of our settings. If we were using Protect, it's going to restore Protect. Now, one thing I will note, what I would do is if I was running Protect, if I had clips that I thought were important, just to err on the side of caution, make sure you download those video clips that you need first, and just in case, because things happen, and I'm not saying that this won't work properly, but you just never know what's going to happen. So here you can see it's updating the firmware. It is rebooting, and then it's going to restore this. So it is like 9:58. We'll be back. I'll tell you how long this took. All right, so it is now 10 o'clock, and perhaps I didn't even pause that. So you were just sitting here watching me for 2 minutes. But it is now rebooting. You can see that. So as soon as this thing reboots, we will be able to proceed with this. All right, so we rebooted, and the screen here hasn't updated yet, but the LCM updated, and it is restoring from the backup right now. So we're about 5 minutes into this, but this process guarantees that the console is updated and that everything comes over from that backup, and that you have MFA. I cannot stress how important it is to bind these devices to your UI.com account for that MFA. You should always do that. So it should just be just a couple more minutes here. So we're going to go back on a pause, And as soon as it's done, we'll be right back. All right, it's been 8 minutes. It is still restoring, but we should be on the downhill slide. We'll be right back. Okay, so that took, 10, about a little over 10 minutes plus the time that we spent messing around grabbing the backup, and it says it's been restored. So now we're going to go to the dashboard. Now, it says that it is entering night mode. So we're going to go to advanced here. We'll accept that. Now, this is, you can see it gave it the name Willie UDR. So let me refresh this unify.ui.com. It says that the console is offline. So let's take a look. Now, that is because it was a model UDR. Now you can see we have the UDR7 there. So in less than 15 minutes, taken out of the box and doing your backup, restoring if it's updating. So I'm supposed to have gigabit internet here, but with everybody doing everything on it that they do, I usually get between 400 and 500 megabits. So that's how quickly it was able to download all of those things and get them restored. And let's check it out. So we're going to go to dashboard. It still retain the same name, but it is a UDR7. You can see we're on the same Unify OS and network versions. I've got all of my IoT, my guest, my Wi-Fi SSIDs. My networks are all here. My internet is still set up, and it did the primary as that port 4 and the secondary as the SFP plus. If we go to VPN, you can see I've still got my teleport enabled under protection. I've got all my region blocking. I've got my IDS IPS going on there. My DNS transferred over. My Wi-Fi speed limit is set up. So I'm pretty happy. And you can see we're on those versions. Console is still called UDR. Let's update this one to UDR7. So it also updated it in the Unify portal. And that's it. It was that easy. So in less than 15 minutes, we were able to take our UDR7. We took a backup from our UDR on our UI.com account. You could do it locally. I don't recommend you're doing anything locally with these because then you don't have MFA. And Ubiquiti is enforcing MFA on your UI.com account. And I just want you to think that if you're not running MFA, Microsoft published a paper, a little bit of Googling, you can find this. 85% of all data breaches could be avoided if MFA was enabled. If you're running this in a business and you have cyber liability insurance and you don't have MFA turned on, your insurance company is not going to be very happy with you. You should use MFA when it's available. So anyway, we're at less than 15 minutes total. You could even sit and stare at the UDR for a while, and it looks exactly the UDR7. It looks exactly like the UDR, but it is a good looking device. Now, obviously, I'm in nighttime mode, so I've got no ring, and the LCM is still on, but the blue ring has shut off. So that's it. If you've got any questions about this process, let me know down below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share. Follow me on Twitter and TikTok. If those links are down below, if you'd like to buy a UDR7 or any of the Unify OS consoles, I'm going to give you a shameless plug right here. I do have an affiliate link down below to the Unify store in the United States, and I do make a little bit of money if you buy those using my links. Don't feel any pressure to do that, but it is appreciated. If you need IT consulting, if you want somebody to help walk you through this process or design spec a new network with another type of firewall and switches and Wi-Fi and the whole bit, or if you need voice over IP, security, storage, all the things, policies, procedures, all that stuff, the stuff that some people forget, And some consultants don't even really talk about it. Head on over to williehowe.com, fill out the contact form that's there on the front page, and someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Come on over to community.williehowe.com and start a conversation. Are you running a UDR7? Did you upgrade from the UDR, or did you just buy the new one? Come on over to the community and let us know. Once again, I'm Willie. I want to thank you for being here, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.